At young ages, we are easily influenced by our surroundings and our upbringings. It's therefore not a surprise that those most at risk for falling under the influence of gangs and into crime come from some of the poorest areas of our modern cities. Gangs are a clear answer for many of these children. They offer a sense of belonging, they provide security, and financial opportunity alongside the risks. As a child and young teen, it's hard to always think rationally and act rationally in our decisions, so it's no wonder that participation within a gang is seen as the most clear way to provide a better life for themselves and their family. It's believed across the United States that there are over 30,000 active gangs today, with an estimated 8% of youths aged 12 to 17 to be actively involved with a gang, and a further 17% of youth within the same 12 to 17 age group to have at least at one point belonged to a gang. There's an estimated 1,059,000 youth gang members currently across cities in the United States. And these are situated in both dense cities as well as rural county communities. There's a whole host of issues that comes with such a high prevalence amongst disadvantaged youths to join into gangs. However, most telling are the rates of incarcerations, the rates of injury, and the rates of deaths we see in gang violence of youth. Many current rap artists are now the generation after those such as Tupac or Eazy-E. Many of these modern artists choose to tell their stories through music of growing up in a gang culture or environment, and choose to use this music to share their stories. It was difficult choosing just one artist for this project. Current popular rappers such as Future or Lil Durk tell their stories of growing up in gangs through their music. But for this project, I chose to focus on a text from UK-based artist named Bugzy Malone. Malone has a particularly heartbreaking story, and the piece I'll be analysing is called Gogh Effect. It details the early years of Malone's life and explains the factors that led him to joining a gang at age 11. I will let the song provide much of his young backstory and will be conducting analysis as it goes, but to give context into his future and the information that the music won't cover, he does become involved in a gang based in Manchester in the UK, which was heavily involved in selling drugs. After his upbringing, he thought joining a gang was the only way to protect his mother and to lift his family out of poverty. He was kicked out of school by age 12 and operated in the gang for 5 years until he was incarcerated after killing 2 members of a rival gang who broke into his home. After several years in prison, Malone was released and became deeply disenfranchised with his life, especially after he lost his best friend while in prison to gang violence. His music isn't being ashamed of what he did. He completely owns his actions, but he does provide insight into why children become involved in gang violence, which makes it such an interesting piece to listen to. Malone's song, Gogh Effect, illustrates the life of a child in an upbringing surrounded by crime and violence. It's a first-person story detailing the early childhood and upbringing of Malone with incredibly vivid imagery. It tells 2 different stories, one of Malone's upbringing and another of which Malone wishes his life was. Let us get right into it.
Yeah, can I hear now? Yeah. I'm in. Yo, picture the midwife pulling him out and he's breathing, and then handed him over to a mother that can't believe it. The umbilical cord gets snipped and everyone's smiling. A beautiful moment, right? Picture a 1-bedroom flat on the ground floor with a drive. Picture him pulling up outside right under the street light. Imagine a baby sleeping right at the beginning of a lifetime. What a beautiful night. Okay, so he's napping, he's changing and he needs feeding, and he's just tired if he starts crying for no reason. But then you catch eye contact with this beautiful creature. My God, what a beautiful child. Picture her telling the dad it's a boy and he can come visit, but the dad's already got a boy and his schedule's busy. Then weigh up the prospects of being a single parent. That's enough to blow anyone's mind.
The song begins with an innocent beginning until it subverts the expectations of a happy family by explaining how Malone was raised by a single mother. To build some more backstory, Malone's father and uncle were both heavily involved within the local gangs, and Malone is living in one of the most crime-ridden parts of Manchester. Notice so far the use of picture several times throughout the song. This is where the song's title, Gogh Effect, references the famous artist, and is used to visualize some of the traumas faced by Malone growing up and letting us, the audience, connect more to his stories. Many children, in fact, seek gangs as an escape from a dysfunctional or difficult home life, and we begin to see this aspect for Malone develop as the song continues.
Picture a bar or a pub that's serving food, and let's just imagine love at first sight is true. Flickering candle, bottle of wine, full moon. That sounds just about right. So picture the perfect date, driving back to her place. Open the door and a look of fear on the babysitter's face. She had a funny feeling and didn't want to leave him in the first place. Something's not right. Imagine the screams of a baby with a snapped leg. Did he get dropped or did he roll out of the bed? Was the impact all to his leg or did he bump his head? Can anybody shed some light?
Once again, Malone focuses on neglect as an early indicator of a troubled childhood. The US National Gang Center, a government body, cites neglectful or harmful family environments as the highest contributor leading to child gang involvement. We will see the harmful side later in his music. Let's continue.
So picture a school uniform fresh out the pack, and picture a confident young boy, mum and a dad, and picture them driving to school, he can't wait to start. What a wonderful life. But picture an old Victorian house broke up into two flats. He was on the top floor with a bowl of Nesquik watching the Rugrats. Downstairs was a very bad man that sold a bit more than loud packs, and that's being polite. So picture the door for the flat upstairs getting took off its hinges, and picture the guy from downstairs running in to cause injuries. And imagine a boy in his bedroom listening, what is he thinking? Can you get traumatized at 5?
Malone begins a trend of describing to the audience a brief glimpse of normal life before yanking back the curtain and detailing some of the horrible battles Malone faced as a child. Throughout the text, Malone is trying to understand why his life is so different from those around him. Malone imagines this perfect family, but then visualizes his own childhood trauma in voracious detail. He's begging to be able to live a normal life, have a normal family, and be a normal child. Feelings of neglect and longing are common causes to drive children towards gangs. To Malone, they offered a sense of belonging that he never received at home, a feeling shared by thousands of youth recruits who join gangs every year. Malone then asks the audience, can you get traumatized at 5? Experiencing incredible violence and instability at a young age leaves deep scars that can functionally transform the way a child sees the world. It was clear that this experience did for Malone, and would lead him to enlist in a gang after becoming desensitized to the violent nature of humans at their worst. Statistics from the Department of Justice show how exposure to violent upbringings greatly increase the likelihood of a child to become involved in gang activity. It's therefore unsurprising from Malone's trauma experienced through the song that he believed joining one would offer him protection, offer him family, and offer him a new home.
Picture her stood in a telephone box on the phone now. She's got a big family and she's gonna bring big bro down. Next thing you know, a car pulls up, a man jump out. There's gonna be a fight. The boys just sat on the windowsill seeing everything. He watched them run in the flat downstairs looking menacing. Loud bangs, screams, everybody's panicking. It became the scene of a crime. The way that the blue lights lit up the street was a picture, and the way that the paramedics were full of blood was messed up. Now picture the guy from downstairs lay on the stretcher. What a terrible sight. Look.
I think the defining moment in Malone's story comes with his first confrontation with death. After his mother was raped by a neighbor, his uncle and his gang stormed into the man's home and brutally murdered him. Malone chooses not to tell his own stories through this song, but also those of his mother and uncle, and the history of gang involvement in his family. Most of all, this song shows how we are all incredibly complex beings, and there isn't one sole reason why youth are attracted to gangs. It comes from seeing their loved ones hurt and not feeling able to protect them. The song continues after this point, however this is where my core takeaways from the song end. Rap music does have an impact in sustaining gang behavior, but I would claim that through this analysis there is a way to assert that it is far from the sole factor that encourages young kids to become involved in crime. Some of the messages certain artists push and are prideful of can indeed have negative consequences for the very young and impressionable members of society and lead to sustained activity in gangs. Yet I think this analysis showed that child involvement in gang warfare is much more complex than what first meets the eye.